You guys, I just really want you guys to be understanding and grasping these algebra concepts because algebra makes you a better dancer because you get the algorithm. But bunch. Yep, that was a good one. So today's video is going over equations and graphing, where we're taking equations and then we're going to put it on a graph. Or we're taking graphs and we're going to write the equations that go along with them. We're going to break this up into kind of two sections. The first section is just graphing the equation. Just graphing the equation. So first, we're going to have to go and we're going to have to remember our equations that we'll be graphing. Remember, y equals mx plus b. If you need to go back and watch the video of me singing and dancing, you can. It's on YouTube for the whole world to see. And last I checked, I had 83 views, so Miss LaRosa doesn't come back second semester. It's because she's YouTube famous. Just kidding. So, in our equation, y equals mx plus b, our m, remember, is our what? Ooh, that's not focused. There we go. Our m is our slope. Remember, our slope tells us the change between points, and the way we calculate that is the rise over the run between those pretty points or those corner points. So here, like this is a pretty point, this is a pretty point, this is pretty. We just figure out the rise and the run between any two of those points. Our b, remember, is our y-intercept. Our b is our y-intercept, where our graph crosses the y-axis. So my b is this point right there at that 4. That's my b, that's my y-intercept. So looking at this line, quick little review. Y equals mx plus b. What's my m here? What's my slope? I've got my 2 points. Remember, I do rise over run. So between these points, my slope is 1, 2, 3, 4. But because we went down, it's a -4. And then for my run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope here is that -4 over 5. My b, my y-intercept, that's where my graph crosses the y-axis. Remember, this is my x, but this is my y. So my y-axis in the graph meet at this point right here. But what is that point? That would be 1, 2, 3 for my y. Remember, we write our coordinates x comma y. If I'm going to that point there, my x, I don't slide left or right, so it's going to be a 0, and my y is going to be +3 because I went up 3. On your y-intercept, because it's on the y-axis, this x will always be 0. This x will always be 0 because I'm not going left or right, I'm just going straight up. I don't slide, I just pop. So there's a little review of that for us. Now we're going to go over how to graph an equation. How to graph an equation. They give us y equals mx plus b. Where do my points go? How do I do that? So the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to plot the y-intercept. Again, the y-intercept goes on the y-axis, so I'm going to put a dot somewhere on this line. From that b, from that dot, I'm going to do my rise. So I'm going to go up or down, however many I'm supposed to go. Then I'm going to do my run. I'm going to run to the right, and I'm going to connect the dots to make a line. So there's 2 hints here that I'm going to tell you guys. This first hint we're going to need for this example. It says if the slope is an integer, we need to put it over 1 to make it a fraction. So for example, in this equation, y equals -4x plus 2, I know that my m, my slope, is rise over run. But -4, that's not a fraction. How do I turn any number into a fraction? I put it over 1. So -4 is going to be my rise, and my run is going to be 1. If it's already in a fraction form, like if it's 1/2, if it's 2/3, you're good. But if they give you an integer, something on my number line, then you need to turn it into a fraction. Okay, so that takes care of our slope. That's that little hint that I gave you there. Now let's go through these steps to solve. The first one is to plot the y-intercept. In this equation, what is my y-intercept? A +2. I have to keep the positive or the plus or the negative, the minus in front of it, because if it's positive, it's above the origin. If it's negative, it's below the origin. But if there's no b, that's because it's proportional, meaning it would go through the origin. We're going to see some examples like that. O-R-I-G-I-N. Oh, there you go. I was about to write the word original. I don't know why. So if there's no b, if they're not adding anything, that means it goes to the origin. It's proportional. But for this situation, my y-intercept is +2. So I go up 2, and I put my dot. So there's my first pretty point. Then I need to do my rise. Like we saw here, our rise is -4. The negative means we're going to go down. I believe it was Fall Out Boy who said we're going down, down. And that's where we're going. We're going down 1, 2, 3, 4. That was our rise. Now we're going to do our run. Remember, we're going to run to the right 1 spot. 1 spot. And I put my new dot. And now to get my graph line, I just connect them. So we can use a ruler to do that. There's a tool in Desmos that will show you that will do that for you. But there is my line from an equation. Don't worry, we're going to do lots of practice with you guys, okay? Let's go to the next one. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Step 1, plot the y-intercept. In this equation, what is my y-intercept? +3. So from my origin, I go up, because those are positive numbers, to 3, and I want to put my dot. Next, I want to do the rise. Remember, rise is how far up or down we go. In this equation, what is my rise? Remember, it's rise over run for my slope. My slope's my number in front of the x. So here, I see my slope is 1/2. That means my rise is going to be 1. So I go up 1 space. Now I'm going to do my run. Remember, I run to the right. And here I see my run is 2. So from where I went up 1, I have to go over 1, 2. There's my second dot. And that's all I need to make a line. I just need 2 dots to make my line. If you got questions, pause it, send us an email, message us on Schoology, whatever you need to do to understand this. Okay. Let me see. We got 4 more examples. We got 4 more examples, don't worry. All right, my next one, I'm going to first plot my y-intercept. What's my y-intercept here? -5. You gotta keep the sign in front with that number. The negative tells me it is below my origin. So I'm going to start off down here. Then I'm going to do my rise. On your own, turn this slope into a fraction. Turn that slope into a fraction for me. Pause the video, take a second, turn that slope into a fraction. Hopefully you got 2/1. So that means my rise is going to be that I'm going up 1, 2, and I'm going to run to the right. I'm going to run one place. I go over, I go to the right one, put my new dot, and there you have it, folks. We've got our line. Wowee, what a time to be alive. This one. We got it. First step, plot the y-intercept. What's my y-intercept in the equation? My b, my bachelor, that number all by itself on the end. So I know my slope is, or my y-intercept, is positive 4. Then now for the slope. This is where things get tricky. Now for the slope. I just see a minus sign in front of my x. Think back. We talked about it last week. We've talked about it before this year. What does it mean if there's just a negative and then x? What number is really in that space? There's that imaginary, that invisible 1 that we talk about. That invisible 1. Math people are lazy. 1 times x is x. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Or the opposite of x. So I know that there's really a 1 in that spot. So what would that be for my slope then? What would be my rise? What would be my run? It should be negative 1/1. I can't have them both be negative, because a double negative makes it positive. That's not right. So my rise needs to be down 1, negative 1, and then my run needs to be to the right 1. Over here 1. Boom! Those dots are super close, but that's okay. That's right. Boom. All right. There's 2 more problems. I want you to try them on your own. I want y'all to try these problems on your own. Go ahead, pause the video. Take the time to graph these two, and then play. Graph both of them. This slide and this slide. Do both those on your own and then come back to me. Good luck. Pauses. All right, so we see I've already got my y-intercept, my negative 1. My rise is negative 1. My run is 4. So I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would be a new dot. And the thing about this is you can just keep repeating this pattern over and over and over again. So if I wanted to do this again, if I see I go down 1, to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I put another dot, if I just keep doing this over and over and over again, that's the thing about the slope. All of these points are going to be on this line. All these points are going to be on this line. If I go backwards from my y-intercept, if I go to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go up 1, the opposite, I still see I have a point on that line. It doesn't matter how many times I keep doing the slope over and over and over again for points, they're all going to be on that line. Because that's what it is. It's a change between points. It's the same number changing between points. And then this last one, remember you've got to turn it into a fraction. To turn any number into a fraction, put it over 1. So my slope is -5. I go down 5 to the right one, connect my dots. Something that's an easy check to see are we on the right page with things is if I see my slope here is negative, I know that that means my line needs to be decreasing. It needs to go down as I go from left to right. So I see here my line is decreasing, it's going down. Here, my slope is negative, my line is decreasing, it's going down. Little checks like that can help you make sure that you're on the right track with things. All right, so if you have questions about any of those, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep keeping on and go on to writing equations from graphs. So this is going to be the opposite of what we just did. Now, I'm going to give you the graph. You're going to have to figure out what's my slope, what's my y-intercept, and plug those numbers into those, the m and b in the equation. So, this first one, the first thing we need to do is we need to calculate the slope. How do we calculate slope again? Oh yeah, it's my rise over my run between my pretty points or my corner points. This one is really nice and it gives you pretty points. So let's see here. I'm gonna use that point and that point. But remember, you can choose any 2 points. It's gonna be the same because the graph is still that same rise over run, rise over run, rise over run. It's just sometimes we have to simplify. So between these 2 points, I see my rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. My rise is 4. My run is 1, 2. Can I simplify 4 over 2 for my slope? What does that simplify to? 4 over 2 simplifies to 2. So my slope, this 2, does the slope go with the x or all by itself? Remember, slope goes with my x. So in my equation, I'm going to take that 2 and plug it in. My slope goes with my x. They're married. My m is married to my x. Then I need to find my y-intercept. Where do we look again for the y-intercept? On that y-axis, I find my dot. I see it's right there. What is that number? What is that number there? If this is 2, this is 4. What's in the middle of 2 and 4? 3. So here my b is 3. Is it a positive 3 or is it a negative 3? Why? It's a positive 3 because it's above my origin. Those are all positive numbers above my origin. If it was below my origin, then it would be negative. So because it's a positive 3, that means I'm adding 3 in my equation. If that was a negative 3, then I would be subtracting in my equation because it's below my origin. Let's take a look at another one. I took the steps away from y'all already. So let's think about this. What is the form of these linear equations we've been working with? Take a minute while I sit here and I grab a bite of my boba. Y equals mx plus b. My m is my slope. My b is my y-intercept. I need to find each of those things and plug them into the equation. We know slope is rise over run. I gotta find that between my corner points, between my pretty points. So let's look here for pretty points. Tell me when to stop. boom, there's 2 pretty points right off the bat, 2 corner points. But if I want to keep going, this point's also pretty, this point's pretty, that point's pretty. Any of those 2 points would work. So I do my rise. Is that a positive or negative 2 that I just did? Positive. Why? Because I went up. Very good. Now my run. How far I go to the right is 1. I want to simplify this when I put it in my equation. What does 2 over 1 simplify to? Just 2. So my 2 is my slope. So let's write that up there so I don't forget. My equation is going to be y equals 2x something. Now I need to find my y-intercept. Where do I look for my y-intercept? On my y-axis. I got to find that point that my line crosses the y-axis. For this situation, what is that number? What is that number right there? 3. Positive 3 or negative 3? Positive 3 because it's above the origin. So I need to add 3 because it's a positive 3. And there's my equation. Y equals 2x plus 3. Nice job. I make a lot of noises. It was funny, I was in a meeting today with Mrs. Curtis and she heard me make a noise and she asked what it was because she thought like somebody's like machine or internet or computer or something happened. I was like, that was me. That sound came from my mouth. She didn't believe me because it sounded so like real. I'm crazy. It's fine. It's fine. All right. So this equation, boom, right off the bat, I'm saying look at this graph carefully. Looking at this graph, what do you notice? My lines go by 2. My lines go by 2. It's not 0, 1, 4, 5, 8. That doesn't make sense. It's 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And it's the same over here. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. All the way up. So that means when we're doing our slope, every little jump we have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Even though it's only 4 jumps, it counts as 8 because each of these lines goes by 2. This one's tricky. This one's tricky. But that's all right. We got this. Y equals x. Let's figure this out. So first, let's take a look at our slope. My slope is rise over run. Now remember, like we said, each line counts as 2. Each line counts as 2. Let's use this point here and this point here. That way it's away from my y-intercept and all that mess. Like we said, each line goes by 2. So for my rise, I would count this as 1, 2, 3, 4. I would count that as 4. And that makes sense. Because if I look over here at the side, this line, this dot starts at 16 and it goes up to 20. That difference between 16 and 20, that's 4. So that means I went up 4 spaces just like we found. Then for my run to the right, again, each line goes by 2. So I need to count 1, 2. 1, 2. Can I simplify 4 over 2? You betcha. What does 4 over 2 simplify to? 2. So here my slope is 2. Then we've got to look for our y-intercept. Just look, oh, excuse me, just looking at this graph, is my y-intercept going to be adding or subtracting? How do you know it's adding? Because it's above the origin. Those are positive numbers. What is my b here? What's my b for this problem? My b here is 8. My b here is 8. Nice job. All right, there's only one more question, one more problem, and of course I'm going to have you try it on your own, but I brought back those steps to help you again, okay? Pause the video, try this one on your own, and we'll see how you do. I know this has been a long video, long set of notes, but it's really good practice because, again, this is what you need for algebra so that you can dance well. All right, for your equation here, you should get y equals negative 2x plus 3. My b here is 3. Even 3 for a lot of them. It can be a number other than 3. That is possible. And then my slope was negative 2. I went down, and then I ran 1. If you guys have any questions on this, please let us know. Otherwise, good luck with your formative.